In this video, we'll look at an overview of sound synthesis. We'll see what a synthesizer is, samplers versus synthesizers, and different synthesis types. So, what is a synthesizer? A synthesizer, or a synth, is an electronic musical instrument that generates audio signals, generally using oscillators. More on that soon. A synth is not to be confused with a sampler. They're different. And a sampler is an electronic instrument which uses sound recordings. So a sampler doesn't generate new sounds from scratch, it uses sound recordings. Those sound recordings could come from a real instrument or a recorded song, or it might come from a synthesizer. So again, a synth is an electronic musical instrument that generates audio signals using oscillators. So the key term there is generates. Now, what is an oscillator? An oscillator is a device that produces sound using various waveforms. So let's take a look at waveforms. Technically, there are an infinite number of waveforms, but we'll look at 4 basic waveforms now. A sine wave looks like this and sounds like this. A square wave looks like this and sounds like this. A triangle wave looks like this and sounds like this. And a sawtooth wave looks like this and sounds like this. These waveforms are the building blocks of most types of synthesis. So there are many different synthesis types, as you can see here, but we're going to just focus on the 3 most common types, which are subtractive, frequency modulation, and wavetable. Subtractive synthesis is a method in which parts of an audio signal are attenuated or changed by a filter to alter the tone of the sound. Subtractive synths are the most common, especially in computers, and Soundtrap uses a subtractive synthesis method. Then there's FM synthesis, or frequency modulation synthesis, which is a method in which the frequency of a waveform is changed by modulating its frequency with another waveform, a modulator. So basically, you can have one oscillator, that's your primary oscillator or your carrier tone, and then you have a secondary oscillator, which is your modulator tone, and that modulator tone modulates the carrier tone. So FM synthesis can get very complicated, but basically you should understand that you're not adding these 2 tones together. One tone is modulating the other tone. So eventually you can get very complicated. This is like an advanced FM synthesis graph, which we don't need to go into, but you can understand that there's all these different oscillators controlling and modulating each other. Finally, there's wavetable synthesis. And this uses a collection of waveforms and allows rapid change between related waveforms. So a wavetable might look something like this, or this, and you'll see there's many different waves all next to each other, and they each have slightly different shapes, or waveforms. And the yellow line shows which wave is active right now. So you could move that yellow line forward and backward, and thus rapidly change the wave that you're using. If you're interested in learning more about the finer details of synthesis, I would encourage you to do some research. YouTube is a great resource, and there's so much you could learn because synthesis is a very deep topic. For our purposes, this will serve as a good introduction, and in the next video, we'll look at how this applies in Soundtrap and how you can actually create these sounds yourself.